Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona on KXXT Family Values Radio. I also want to welcome our online audience on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and LinkedIn. I want to give a shout out to Beyond Fear to Freedom, one of the best Christ-centered fellowships that provide a safe and loving community for women in recovery, and every Friday night at 5:15 you can have food and fellowship. At 6 or 6:15, somewhere in that vicinity, they're going to go ahead and have their message. Go out to their website and you can check out the times, locations, and so forth of where this is at. If you missed our show yesterday, and I'm just telling you from your own ability to understand what's going on, I really think you should watch this in chronology. And if you're watching on YouTube, they're already out there, so you can watch them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You'll get the idea and the chronology. It'll really help you understand it. We're with Christina O'Brien. Hey, this is day 2. Christina, welcome back.
Thank you.
I have to say, my heart goes out to every single person that has had to run the road like this. And, the highway to hell is like a 20-lane, it's like a 20-lane superhighway. There's no way to get off the highway of hell, the destruction, unless you do a 180-degree turnaround. If you did a 20-degree turn, left or right, you're still on it. Right. If you did a 45-degree, you're still on it. You have to do a 180-degree turnaround. And I noticed that after you do that, the paths get smaller. Yeah. The way gets narrower. Well, listen, we talked about it yesterday. I think we dropped off somewhere around the time where you were heading into jail for the first time.
Yeah, prison.
Hey, this is the big time.
Yeah.
What prison did you wind up at the beginning of?
Perryville.
So you did. So you went to jail down in Tucson?
Down in Tucson.
Okay, and what was jail like in Tucson?
Like I said, it was a lot of the women that I knew from the streets, and I had by that time acquired enough, street smarts or whatever to be able to survive in there. Mm-hmm. But I was the youngest girl in there at the time, and I wasn't really scared. Mm-hmm. By that time in my life, unfortunately, I had met the boogeyman up close and personal a few times, and so I kind of, didn't have a lot of fear for things by that age.
All right, so you hit jail, you go to court, guilty as charged. How many years the first time through?
Well, I had gotten out on probation because I had shared earlier that they were trying to help me, give me resources, put me on probation, all that, and I messed that up, but on my way back to jail for messing that up, I got another felony. So now they stacked those 2 sentences, and so it was a year and a half, 9 months for each one.
I have to say, I've been in return to custody yards, especially on the men's side. Yeah. I don't think there's a dumber gender than men. I have to say my gender is pretty out there. What are you doing here at the return to custody? You blew you didn't tell your PO where you were. You didn't do your urine analysis for the week, whatever the reason is, right? Yeah. So we blow opportunities when we had a chance to get out, get off paper.
Yes.
Okay. Well, talk about, so you're going back in. What's the sentence that they're going to give you this time? Because you have another charge now.
Yeah, now I have another charge, so it's going to be a year and a half for both. Mm-hmm. I mean, they ran them together, but it was 9 months for one and 9 months for the other. And kind of, fought with a police officer on my way into jail this time. So I had a little bit more serious charge, which made the custody level that I went to a little bit higher, and kind of exposed me to a different mentality in prison than I would have originally gotten.
Okay, what level of custody is
it was maximum security.
And how old were you?
I was 18.
So you're 18, you're on maximum security. So most people go through maximum security through RNA, but you didn't leave after RNA,
no.
Right? Which is what is it's assessment. It's an assessment time to figure out.
Them try to figure out where to put you, where they can,
So when you're sitting at Lumley, I've noticed that the security issues on Lumley are way bigger and tighter than they are in any of the other yards. So what's going on in your mind? You're walking. It's a lot of, when I was there back in the day, I don't know if it was true when you were 18, but people are walking around in leg irons.
Yeah, it was that same atmosphere. They had this was back in the day when women was the women's section was just a small portion of Perryville, and then all the rest was men. So there was just one unit. I think Lumley was the men's side at that point in time. But yes, it was. I went to prison and was housed with, people that had 25 to life, people that were never going to get out. To this day, I have friends that have been there all this time, from the time I was 18 years old and met them for the first time, and I've had friends that have since passed away in Perryville. All that I made friends that I made during that period of my first incarceration, and yes, leg irons, all kinds of
restricted
mental health
movement.
issues, restricted right, everything.
Going to chapel at that time?
No.
No, yeah, no.
No. As a matter of fact, when I first went into the prison system, I was really involved in the occult. So for the first 2 times that I went to prison, my religious preference was pagan.
And did you go to, I have seen that out in the yards. You name the religion and practice, it's out there.
Yeah.
Were there practicing pagans and going through their rites and so forth?
Yes. Yeah.
Where'd you pick that up? Just in prison you figured it out, or are you already there?
No, I had already been exposed to that also. So that was another layer of darkness that I was exposed to in my early teens. And so, not really understanding the ramifications of opening those doors. I just thought, this is cool. And anywhere that I could feel accepted, anywhere that I could feel like I could fit in. And so if it was, the pagan culture, great. If it was, out on the streets doing drugs, great. Just, and it was always a process of me trying to find that place for that moment where I could feel like I was okay.
When you're 18 and you're sitting in a max yard, a lot of scammers on that yard?
Yeah.
A lot of people, there's no difference, right?
Right, but remember that by that age I had also developed those
skill
particular
sets.
That skill set as well. So I was just as bad as anybody else in terms of not having any integrity and not being able to be trusted, and certainly not being a woman or a young woman of my word.
Do you think your time to you at 18, did it go fast, or was it just a drag?
It went really fast. It was like Snoopy camp, to be honest with you. It was back, like I said, I went to prison for the first time in the early 90s, and 89, 90. And so it was a completely different environment than what they have now as far as prison goes. To me, the sentence was too short. I really didn't grasp what the gravity of what had just happened, that I went to prison, and it was all fun and games, and whatever trouble there was to get in there, I was in it, in the middle of it. And so it didn't have a huge impact on me at all.
Well, you got your out date assigned to you by your social worker. You're heading out the gates.
Yeah.
I don't know what they gave you back then, maybe $20, $30 or whatever. I don't even know if they gave money away back then.
50.
50 bucks. Well, it's a raise.
Yeah.
And you went right home and repented your brains out? No. What did you do when you got out?
No, I got out, and I actually went to a halfway house that was ran by DOC for a period of time, and then figured out, because remember, I'm a master manipulator, so I figured out, how can I do what I got to do to get this parole over with, but still get high? And so that's exactly what I tried to
in the
do.
halfway house.
In the halfway house, and then.
Is there that much difference between the halfway house and any other house you're living? How much dope is in these transitional places?
Yeah, no, it was there, but I figured out a way to get paroled out of there to a little bit more relaxed environment where I could make it look good that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, but in actuality I was getting high the whole time. When
you think about your time you're leaving, you started heading right back to Tucson then? Did you stay here?
No, I stayed in Phoenix.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I stayed right here in Phoenix, and just new environment and new faces, and just picked up right pretty much where I left off, because I thought to myself, well, maybe things will be different if I don't go back to Tucson. If I stay here in Phoenix, I can start all over again, and but I really didn't even have a desire to change. What I had a desire to do was get as far away from any accountability as I could. I didn't think of it that way at the time, but that's what I was trying to do. Put as much space in between me and anybody that was going to make me answer for my actions, basically.
When you think about the things that you went through in prison, It sounds to me, not correct me,
Mm-hmm.
it sounded like it wasn't that big a deal for you.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so that makes it even worse because, hey, prison wasn't that bad. I was in there 18 months. What's the problem?
Yeah, what's the problem? It didn't have the impact that it should have had, but also at that age, I didn't have a vision beyond what I was in the middle of. I didn't have a vision for a future for myself. I didn't, you know, the white picket fence was a joke to me then at that point, you know. The fairy tales I learned really early in life that they don't exist.
Well, when I think about you being in your early 20s, you just got out of prison
Just
in
got
your
out of
early
prison in my
20s,
early 20s.
and we're going to spend another, what, 2 decades in this lifestyle.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Listen, if you're listening to Christina's story and you say, I am in that story, or you find the narrative actually speaks to maybe somebody that you're related to, this could be your wake-up call to intervene, to get in there. And there are people at Beyond Fear to Freedom that could help you out. If you just go out to their website, beyondfeartofreedom.org, talk to somebody, start the process. It's tough to do it, but I know you can do it. Just remember, if Christina can get saved and find God, you can get saved and find God. When we come back, we'll do more on our second segment of Christina O'Brien's story. We'll be right back. Hooray. Now we're going to go to the next, when is the next prison thing?
2002.
So there's a little time here,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we're going to talk about your time then. Okay.
But you don't have to travel it alone. Every Friday night, like-minded women gather together to share a meal and their stories, how they broke the destructive cycles in their lives by the power of God and moved on to a new life in Christ. For more information about Friday nights, just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. If you can't get to BFF on Friday nights, or you don't live in the Phoenix area, you can stay connected by joining BFF's Subscribe Tribe, where you'll receive their weekly study guide, so you can track with them online. Just sign up today on BFF's website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And don't forget to listen to BFF's weekly video podcast with Debbie G and Sheridan. Their own life experiences and their biblical influence will overhaul your thinking, your identity, and your future. They'll keep you encouraged with some great insight and biblical truth. Just friend them on Facebook or go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. BFF, where you might just discover a best friend forever.
Hey, no one's outside the reach of God. I mean, I'm sitting here with Christina O'Brien. We're in the dark days of her story. There's no doubt about it. We're halfway through that. You know, we're going to do this second segment and tomorrow and finish it up. And then Thursday, find out how did this Damascus Road experience happen to you. Christina, you get out of prison. You've been to jail. You've been to juvie. And you just got out of prison and you're what, 21?
19, 20, 21.
19,
like
20,
that,
21. Oh my gosh. And we still have years and decades of a lifestyle. Tell me, you said you didn't go back to Tucson, so you must have been able to connect and hook up with people in prison to know who to talk to, or was it no, you just started from ground zero?
So I got out of prison in 91, actually, and I paroled here to Phoenix, and, you know, I was in some dysfunctional relationships, and if I'm being honest, I was the dysfunctional equation in most of my relationships. I'd like to be able to blame it on the other people involved, but as I've learned and grown, I can certainly identify myself as the toxic person in the equation in all of those relationships. But at that point in time, between 91 and 2000, I was in a relationship, and I got pregnant twice with two daughters, and I was so ill-equipped of the responsibility of having 2 children. I was an addict even still,
And not married.
you know, in just every manner of, you know, relationship that was not honoring God. Let's say that. And so I had these 2 beautiful little lives that, for whatever reason, you know, God had allowed me to be the one to bring these 2 girls into the world, and I failed them miserably within the first few years of their lives, because I was again trying to have one foot in some kind of functional life that I didn't even know how to live, and still have the other foot feeding and fueling my addiction. And as addicts, we are such selfish people by nature. There was no room for me to be an adequate mother to them in any capacity. So in my addiction, I was negligent to my two daughters. And so in the year 2000, they were taken away from me by Child Protective Services because of my addiction and because I was not taking proper care of them.
How old were they?
They were, at that age, they were 2 and 3. They're 15 months apart, you know. So just like probably every mother, I had this grand vision in my mind of how I was going to be such a good mom, and their childhood was going to be so different than mine, and I was going to give them such the life that I didn't have. And in actuality, we can talk about that later, but I began in their early childhood perpetuating the same exact cycle that I had gone through in my childhood. They were taken away from me because, you know, I exposed them to a life and drugs and all that kind of stuff that they were just innocent. They didn't have a voice in the life that I was living. And so praise God. I mean, I used to be angry because my kids got taken away from me, and how dare they take my kids away from me. And in actuality, that was the sovereign hand of God intervening in my children's lives.
You can see that now.
Absolutely. Right. Yes, protecting
Any
them.
visitation during this time of separation?
Again, Child Protective Services gave me every resource and every opportunity that I could possibly be given. They did everything that they could to try to help me get it together and help me have the tools that I needed to be a good mom. But
and you didn't take advantage.
I took advantage of
them. Yeah.
I had not up to this point in my life been willing to even acknowledge that there was a heart issue here with me. And certainly I couldn't give away something that I didn't have. But I was very arrogant. I thought that, you know, I was not the problem. Everybody else was the problem. And how dare they take my children away from me? That is not the truth that the Lord has revealed to me since coming to Christ.
Okay, so really, you didn't really get to see them that much then?
I got to see them. I was given visitation, but at that point in time, you know, again, treading that line, trying to stay high and trying to keep the appearance up that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but behind closed doors, fueling my addiction. And so, you know, I would miss visitations with them. I abandoned them. I did, you know.
I think most of our listeners may not have been at the level. A lot of people do jump, I mean, since the late 60s when I was a kid. But I think people say, how could you divorce yourself from your own flesh and blood in the name of, I got to get high?
Yeah, I don't think that you like make a conscious decision to do that. I never consciously said, I don't care about my children and I'm going to do this over here because this is more important than my children. Now people on the outside, you know, to the point of like screaming at me, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to your kids? And that victim mentality that I had going on in my own heart because of my own unresolved issues and my own traumatic experiences, I couldn't even see past that to see the damage that I was now inflicting on my two innocent daughters. And, you know, like I told you, I did not realize that God had intervened and protected not only them but myself, because in all of my visits to jail and prison, there have been 2 times that I have had roommates who are now in Perryville doing 25 years to life for allowing their children to be exposed to that lifestyle, the drug lifestyle and so forth, and something horrendous happened to their children. And why I'm not sitting in their shoes and, you know, instead out here allowed my freedom and allowed to tell my story about how God saved not only my life but my children's lives. I don't know other than his grace. But I can tell you that had it not been for him, the story could have ended tragically. Not because I did anything right. I did everything wrong by my kids, you know. And so I don't think to answer your question, like, we just don't even think about it. We're just busy doing what we're doing. And you do get divorced from those feelings and that conscience, but you don't realize it until it's too late.
I see many of our people that we've fellowshipped with over the years, they're so blinded, they're so focused on their drugs that there's no peripheral vision. Nothing comes into their life from the sidelines. Everything is this and that's it.
Yeah.
Think about this. If you could be so focused on things like this, which are terribly dark and evil, what happens when a person finds God and they have that same focus? I mean, that could be we'll talk about that Thursday.
Definitely.
Now, so when was your next time in prison?
2002. And so I had been given my children back because I was able to paint this picture for all parties involved that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and, you know, and still getting high and still lying about it. But I painted a good picture on the outside. So I had gotten my children back from the system and lost them again, re-traumatized them again.
And their ages were?
Their ages were 4 and 5 at this time. And I also was on probation, adult probation, and got arrested on new charges on probation. And because I had been to prison before, there was absolutely no way I was going to get out of going to prison again. So with all these charges combined, now CPS and everybody's on board, and it's absolutely going to be severing my rights. I went to prison in 2002.
And how long?
4 years.
4 years.
And in the middle of that 4-year sentence, my rights were severed over the phone.
So now there's no visitation?
Absolutely nothing. And my daughters were 4 and 5.
What level of custody?
This time I was in medium.
Medium security, okay.
Yeah, medium custody. So my rights were severed over the phone. And I actually, and a lot of people, when I tell this part of my story, I had at least received some conscience at that stage of life where I voluntarily allowed my rights to be severed, and I voluntarily let my children go to live with their father's family, because in my heart at that time, it's not that I didn't love my daughters. I loved my daughters tremendously, but I didn't even love myself. I couldn't even take care of myself, much less them. That was probably the most unselfish thing that I had done for them up to that point in their life, was stop acting like I have a handle on what's going on and that I know how to take care of these kids, or that I am even qualified. I can't. So I agreed to let my rights be severed, and they went to go live with their father's family. And at that point in time, all communication was severed.
What's it like on Mother's Day in prison?
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. You know, because you're in there and you're stripped of all your drugs and alcohol and all your coping mechanisms,
And
and
now
you're
no
left
kids.
with yourself, and your kids are gone, and you have to deal with that brutal truth that you did this.
Well, all this week, we're going to continue to unpack Christina's story. You'll want to catch us tomorrow for part 3 of her story. And remember, you won't want to forget a single episode. You can go out and watch any of them you want. And don't forget, you can go to the BFF meeting on Friday night. It starts at 5:30 for food and fellowship, 6:15. You can get there and hear their experiences. And remember, child care is provided. So until next time, I'm Steve Savant. And remember, no one's outside the reach of God. No one.